As the 2022 midterms approach, Republicans appear to have the initiative and potential for a 2022 red wave, where Republicans can retake both the House and the Senate. But recently that lead appears to have faltered. According to Nate Silver's 538, President Biden's approval rating has jumped from a low of 37.5% to 42.5%. This has put him and the Democratic Party in a position to potentially maintain their wins in Congress. Granted, 42.5% isn't a great approval rating, but generally during a midterm period, presidents struggle and their parties suffer incredible losses. For example, during the 2018 midterms, Republicans suffered major losses and the Democrats gained entire control of the House. During the 2014 midterms, Republicans surged, taking 54 Senate seats and 244 House seats. So to many, Biden's sudden surge at this time comes as a surprise. The Democrats' victories are also no different. According to a 538 poll, Democrats have a 1-point lead ahead of Republicans ahead of the 2022 midterms, which has come as another surprise to many political analysts. They have closed the gap and evened in polling among Senate races. Democrats have also overperformed in special elections, such as the New York special election where Democrat Pat Ryan won against Republican Mark Molinaro, and the Alaska special election where Mary Peltola defeated Sarah Palin, which has many GOP analysts worried. But not so fast. While the Democrats have a lead in polling, Republicans still maintain the essential advantages needed to win the midterms. Despite this, the midterms will be incredibly competitive and close. I'll be breaking this down into 3 points: why Joe Biden and the Democrats have appeared to found their stride, number 2, where Republicans have the advantage, and 3, major trends to look out for and how the election will be decided. Let's start with the first point: why the Democrats look like they found their stride a little. While Republicans look like they're poised to sustain a midterm victory, Democrats have overtaken them primarily by getting major legislative victories and being on the offensive in some cases. For example, the overturning of Roe v. Wade have allowed Democrats to have enough political ammo to attack the Republicans on the issue of abortion. Similarly, Biden's speech calling MAGA Republicans threats to democracy shows how the message of Democrats seem to have shifted to an offensive type of approach where Republicans will be called extreme and unpopular. They hope that by using this strategy, voters will pick Democrats over Republicans who they are painting as extreme. They hope that Biden's approval among voters, which is one of the weakest in contemporary history for a president in his first term, will not play a key role in this cycle's elections where it historically has. In other words, dislike for Joe Biden doesn't translate to them voting Republican. Rather, them voting Democrat because it's a better alternative than the extreme Republicans that support Donald Trump, thus the Democratic revival. Not to mention that recent legislative victories such as the passing of the CARES Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the Student Loan Forgiveness Plan have given the Democrats victories to point to before the midterms. This hasn't stopped there, with a potentially new Iran nuclear deal being negotiated and a bill being debated to enshrine gay marriage into the federal law to offer the Democrats even more victories before the midterms. While it has been difficult for the Democrats to maintain their lead due to Joe Biden's severe unpopularity right now due to a poor economic climate and unpopular foreign policy moves, the Democrats are making it competitive for the Republicans. The Republicans are in a tough dilemma right now. The party's Senate candidates, generally weak, it has no economic message beyond inflation, and it's fearful of the social issues such as abortion as a result of the decision in Kansas to leave abortion as it is, which has left GOP strategists fearful. And as a result, it leaves the entire party as a whole exposed. Without an answer to the left's attacks, the Republicans will no longer be on the offensive and lose all their momentum going into the midterms. This brings me to why the Republicans do have an advantage. While the Democrats have seen major victories in the past months, Republicans still hold the essential keys to a midterm victory. More than 71% of voters believe that the country is on the wrong track, which historically has been a terrible indicator for members of the incumbent party. In comparison, in 2014, only 65% of voters thought the country was on the wrong track, even with a Republican-held House of Representatives. Historically, a sentiment that the party is on the wrong track has correlated significantly with the victory of the opposing party. Joe Biden's numbers haven't gotten better at all. 75% of Democrats want someone else other than Joe Biden to run in 2024, and only 35% of Americans actually view him as mentally sharp. Republicans also hold a slight enthusiasm advantage over the Democrats, which will help with turnout. Despite the Democrats' victories, they don't appear to actually be game changers for enthusiasm within their base. Voters will still be focused primarily on the economy, but the Republicans must be careful on how they present their rhetoric when it comes to things like abortion, and they must unite behind common talking points. We also need to mention the Republicans' polling surge in areas such as Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, where Democrats appear to be losing their leads because of independent and swing voters that are moderate and view the Biden administration disapprovingly. It becomes more likely that in the days leading up to the elections, independent and swing voters will vote against the incumbent political party, especially with the political environment that is so focused on the presidency. During this election cycle, one important indicator to look out for are the minority voters. In the 2020 election, Republicans saw massive shifts to the right, primarily from Latino voters in southern Texas and Miami-Dade County. It marks sort of a seismic shift in American politics. But now in the 2022 midterms, it will be a heavy determiner of which party controls Congress. In a Morning Consult study, it found that there was a 16% drop in Hispanic voters being liberal. Similarly, there was a 15% drop in black voters identifying as liberal. This, mind you, doesn't necessarily mean that they've all become conservatives, but rather they're voters that Republicans can pick up if needed. Because of all these factors, the 2022 midterms, which has seemed like an easier Republican victory, have suddenly become more interesting and competitive. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, there's a chance that you're interested in American politics. Head on over to our second channel, Dome TV, where we discuss political topics in a laid-back and casual way. We post episodes daily, so you definitely don't want to miss out. Besides that, peace.